The Lost Friend. He prefaced it by saying that if anyone asked him for his most terrifying tale, his masterpiece of fear, this would be it. It's the story of his friend who vanished, a haunting memory from his late teenage years, roughly 15 to 20 years ago, centered around the coastal town of Seacliff Point. Mark told me that back then, around the age of 17 or 18, his life involved commuting between Seacliff Point and the nearby, larger city of Harbor City, where he was attending school. His mother ran a small, bustling food stall in one of Seacliff Point's local markets, selling curry over rice and other dishes. It was a typical setup, nothing fancy, but it placed Mark right in the heart of the community whenever he was back home from his studies. Directly opposite his mother's stall was a row of shophouses. One of these housed a small grocery store run by a family who had recently moved to Seacliff Point from a different area called Riverbend Town. This family had a son, a boy about a year or two younger than Mark. Let's call him Alex. Mark's mother, being familiar with the grocery store owners, noticed that Alex seemed lonely and didn't have any friends yet. She often nudged Mark, go talk to him, make him feel welcome. However, his social skills were, as Mark put it, in the negative. He was incredibly quiet, reserved, and kept to himself. He rarely initiated conversation and often gave one-word answers. Mark initially thought perhaps it was just the awkwardness of being new to town, still adjusting to the unfamiliar environment. Alex enrolled in a local school, but even there, he remained isolated, failing to make any connections. Mark found himself wondering if there was some hidden issue, some deeper reason for Alex's reclusiveness. Following his mother's persistent encouragement, Mark made an effort. He'd buy sodas from Alex's family store and try to strike up conversations. "Hey, where are you from?" he'd ask, trying to break the ice. Alex's responses remained brief and noncommittal. It took time and persistence. The real breakthrough in their acquaintance came one evening when Alex hesitantly asked Mark for help. It was the era of dial-up internet, the kind that screeched and whined through the phone lines. "Hey, Mark," Alex asked, using Mark's name properly for perhaps the first time, "do you know how to set up the internet?" Mark confirmed he did, and Alex asked if he could come over to his house and help install it. Mark agreed and went over that night. It was inside the privacy of Alex's home, away from the public eye of the market, that Mark discovered Alex's true personality. The quiet, withdrawn boy transformed. He was actually incredibly playful, mischievous, and had a great sense of humor. He loved to joke and tease, a complete contrast to his public persona. Mark realized Alex wasn't inherently unfriendly. He was perhaps just shy, or hadn't found anyone he felt comfortable enough with to let his guard down. He was just a normal teenager beneath the reserved exterior. From that point on, their friendship solidified. Mark started spending more time with Alex whenever he was back in Seacliff Point. Mark's mother had a motorcycle with a sidecar attached, which she used for her business. Mark would often take this quirky vehicle, pile Alex, and sometimes a few other local kids they started hanging out with into the sidecar, and they'd cruise around the area. Mark remembers a phase, fueled by popular ghost hunting TV shows of the time, where they actively sought out supposedly haunted locations in and around Seacliff Point. "Any alley rumored to have ghosts, any abandoned house, we went," Mark told me. They explored these spooky spots as a group, often more out of a thrill-seeking curiosity than genuine belief. And Mark emphasized that during these youthful adventures, they never actually encountered anything genuinely supernatural. Life went on. Mark became busier with his final year of studies in Harbor City, and his visits to Seacliff Point became less frequent. He was away for a significant stretch. When he finally returned after finishing his exams, he was shocked to hear about the changes in Alex. The once shy, then playful boy had undergone another transformation, this time a far more troubling one. In Mark's absence, Alex had fallen in with a rough crowd in town. He'd gone from being a somewhat awkward kid to a burgeoning troublemaker, then quickly escalated to becoming a known local gangster, a tough guy. He was constantly involved in fights, brawls with kids from other neighborhoods, essentially carving out a reputation for violence. Mark was stunned by this drastic shift. He sought Alex out, sat him down, and tried to talk sense into him. "What happened to you, man?" Mark asked. "Where did the fun, playful guy go?" He reminded Alex of his better qualities. Alex listened, or pretended to listen, but Mark could tell his words weren't truly sinking in. Alex had embraced his new identity. His parents, who Mark described as reasonably well off, repeatedly had to bail him out of trouble, paying off potential complainants or using money to keep him out of juvenile detention. The transformation was disturbingly complete. Mark described it starkly. He went from a K-pop idol lookalike to a hardened criminal. From white to pure black. Mark felt the distance growing too, saddened by his friend's self-destruction. On one visit back, Alex approached Mark. "How's it going?" Alex asked. Mark replied he was fine and asked Alex the same. Alex grimaced, "Not so great, man," and lifted his shirt to show Mark a fresh, nasty-looking stab wound on his stomach from a recent fight. Mark was horrified. "You need to stop this, Alex," he pleaded. "This path only leads to death or prison. There's nothing good here." But Alex brushed off the concern with bravado. "Hey, I'm a man." "My honor is everything," Mark shot back, frustrated. "What honor? What man's honor makes your parents suffer, makes them beg people not to press charges against you? Is that the kind of honor you value?" Alex clearly resented the criticism, and their already strained friendship cooled even further. They barely interacted after that. Mark recalled one specific evening, perhaps 2 or 3 weeks after that confrontation, which now stands out ominously in his memory. He was returning home late after watching a movie. His route took him past a particular alley near the beach, an area known locally for being haunted and leading towards a cluster of unfinished, abandoned townhouses near the sea. As he drove past, he saw Alex and his gang hanging out, drinking. Mark hesitated but decided to stop briefly, maybe out of old habit or lingering concern. "Hey Alex, who are you with?" Mark asked, pulling over. "Just some older friends," Alex replied. Mark took a closer look at the group, illuminated dimly by the orange glow of the streetlights. Alex himself was bruised, with cuts and swelling on his face, blood near his ear, his clothes torn and dirty. The others in the group looked even worse, split lips, black eyes, clearly fresh from a violent brawl. "What happened to you guys?" Mark asked, alarmed. "Oh, just had a run-in with some guys from another area," Alex boasted, almost proudly. Mark was appalled. "You guys look like you need a hospital, not a party." One of the guys, leaning heavily on Alex, looked particularly bad. His face, tilted onto Alex's shoulder, seemed covered in blood, though the dim, orange light made it hard to see clearly. "Is he okay?" Mark asked Alex, pointing to the injured friend. Alex didn't even glance back at the guy. Yeah, he's fine, he slurred dismissively. Mark felt a deep sense of unease. He made his excuses quickly. "Okay, well, I gotta go." He felt a knot in his stomach seeing them celebrating after clearly having been in a brutal fight, especially seeing the condition of the guy leaning on Alex. The absolute final time Mark saw Alex, before everything changed, happened a day or 2 later. It was evening, and Mark was helping his mother at her food stall, which also sold fried snacks like fish balls. Alex walked up and ordered a large amount of fried snacks, 100 bahts worth, which was quite a lot. Mark's mother commented, "Wow, Alex, eating so much tonight?" Alex's reply sent a chill down Mark's spine, though he didn't fully grasp its weight until much later. Alex said with a strange sort of finality, "Better eat now, Auntie. Might not get the chance when I'm dead." Mark felt a flicker of premonition, a sense of wrongness, but pushed it aside. He didn't want to get involved. After that evening, Mark didn't see Alex around. Days turned into weeks, and then a couple of months passed. Alex had simply vanished. His mother started asking around, eventually approaching Mark. "Mark, have you seen Alex? Did he go visit you in Harbor City?" Mark confirmed he hadn't seen him. Alex's mother was growing frantic. Her son had been missing for 2 or 3 months, with absolutely no word. At that point, Mark told me, he still assumed Alex had probably just run off with friends or was lying low somewhere after getting into more trouble. He didn't yet grasp the severity of the situation. Alex was gone, and nobody knew where. As the months stretched on with absolutely no word from Alex, No calls, no sightings reported by anyone else, no leads turning up despite his mother's increasingly desperate search. The initial assumption that he'd simply run off began to fade, replaced by a gnawing, heavier sense of dread. Alex's mother was relentless, Mark told me. She checked hospitals, police stations, and made endless inquiries, but it was as if Alex had vanished into thin air. The vibrant, troubled young man Mark knew was gone, leaving only a chilling void and unanswered questions. It was during this period of deepening mystery and rising anxiety that Mark began to experience things he couldn't explain, things directly connected to his missing friend. The first incident occurred late one night. Mark was riding his mother's sidecar motorcycle back home, his route taking him past that familiar, dimly lit alley near the beach, the last place he'd seen Alex consciously interacting with his gang. As he approached, his headlights momentarily swept across the alley's entrance. In that fleeting illumination, Mark swore he saw Alex standing there, just inside the mouth of the alley. He looked pale, unnervingly still, and somehow different. Mark's heart jumped. He quickly looped the motorcycle around, wanting to confirm what he saw, maybe even call out. But when he passed the alley again, just seconds later, it was empty. There was no sign of Alex, nowhere he could have hidden so quickly. Mark tried to brush it off. "I'm tired," he told himself. "My eyes are playing tricks on me. It's dark." He rationalized it as stress and fatigue from his studies and the worry about Alex. A week or two later, under almost identical circumstances, late night, riding the sidecar, passing the same alley, it happened again. Mark saw him. Alex standing in the exact same spot, looking just as pale and static as before. This time, however, Mark felt an immediate, visceral reaction. A cold dread washed over him, the hairs on his arms stood on end. This wasn't just his eyes playing tricks, something felt profoundly wrong, unnatural. He didn't stop this time, didn't circle back. He gripped the handlebars tighter, hit the accelerator, and sped away as fast as the old motorcycle could carry him, his mind racing with fear. The encounters escalated. One night, Mark was home alone in Seacliff Point. It was late, probably past midnight, and the house was quiet. Suddenly, he heard it, a clear voice calling his name from outside. "Mark." "Mark," it sounded distinctly like Alex. His blood ran cold. Heart pounding, he crept cautiously to the window overlooking the street. Peering out, he saw a figure standing directly under the orange glow of the nearest streetlight. It was Alex. He was looking straight up at Mark's window, his face pale in the artificial light. Mark watched, frozen, as Alex slowly raised a hand and gestured, beckoning him to come down. Terror gripped Mark. He instinctively ducked back from the window, hiding in the shadows of his room, his breath catching in his throat. He stayed there, crouched and terrified, listening intently. The calling stopped. After several long, agonizing minutes, he risked another look outside. The street was empty. Alex was gone. Again, a part of Mark tried to rationalize it. Maybe he'd fallen asleep and dreamt it. Maybe the stress was causing auditory and visual hallucinations, but the fear felt intensely real. The most terrifying incident, the one that shattered any remaining denial, occurred not long after. Mark was once again riding the sidecar motorcycle home late at night. The road was dark and relatively empty. As he drove along, concentrating on the road, he suddenly felt the distinct sensation of weight shifting in the sidecar next to him. It felt exactly as if someone had just jumped or settled into the seat. He instinctively glanced to his right. Sitting there, right beside him in the sidecar, was Alex. Mark told me the sight was horrifying. Alex looked gaunt, his skin almost translucent pale, his eyes hollow. He wasn't looking at Mark, but staring straight ahead. Then Alex turned his head slowly towards Mark and spoke. His voice sounded faint, distant, almost echoing, not like his normal voice at all. "Mark. Mark, help me," the apparition pleaded. "Take me home. I want to go home." He screamed, slamming on the brakes, causing the bike and sidecar to swerve violently. He whipped his head around to look directly at the sidecar, bracing for something, but it was empty. Alex was gone, as suddenly as he had appeared. The only presence was the cold night air and the frantic pounding of Mark's own heart. He sat there for a long moment, shaking uncontrollably, the phantom weight and the desperate plea echoing in his mind. There was no rationalizing this away. This wasn't exhaustion, or a dream, or a trick of the light. He knew, with chilling certainty, that he had just shared his motorcycle with the ghost of his missing friend. After that night, Mark was deeply shaken. He actively avoided riding near that alley or being out late alone whenever he was in Seacliff Point. The sightings stopped. Time passed. Mark eventually finished his studies, found a job, and life moved on. But the mystery of Alex's disappearance and the memory of those terrifying encounters lingered like a dark cloud. Years went by. Alex remained missing, presumed by many to have simply run away and started a new life, or perhaps met with foul play far from home. His poor mother never gave up hope, continuing her search, checking records, following futile leads, clinging to the possibility that her son was still alive somewhere. For Mark, the fear subsided into a persistent, unsettling memory, a story he rarely shared, unsure if anyone would believe him, forever haunted by Alex's spectral plea, "Take me home." Mark told me about 7 or 8 years had passed. He had finished his education, settled into a job, and the sharp edges of fear from those ghostly sightings had dulled into a persistent, unsettling memory. Alex's disappearance remained an open wound for his mother, who never stopped searching. But for Mark and others in Seacliff Point, it had become a cold case, a local tragedy shrouded in mystery. Life, as it does, had moved on. The catalyst for revisiting this dormant horror came when Mark, now in his mid-20s, decided to ordain as a Buddhist monk for a temporary period. This is a significant rite of passage for many young men in Thailand, often done to make merit for their parents. A few days before the scheduled ordination ceremony, Mark returned to his mother's house in Seacliff Point to prepare. It was during this time, just days before he was due to shave his head and don the monk's robes, that Alex appeared to him one final time. Mark was at home, perhaps contemplating the life change ahead, when he saw him again. Alex was standing outside, visible from the house. Mark described his appearance this time as different, less overtly terrifying than the figure in the sidecar, perhaps calmer, even sorrowful. He looked directly at Mark, and his voice, though still carrying that strange, otherworldly quality, was clearer, more distinct than the desperate plea years before. "Mark." "Mark," the apparition said, holding Mark's gaze. Tell mom to go check the pawn shop again. The one near the market, tell her to check again." This final encounter, occurring after years of silence and right before a significant spiritual undertaking for Mark, presented a stark and unavoidable question. Why now? Why this specific message about the pawn shop, a place Alex's mother had likely checked countless times over the years? Was this apparition truly Alex's spirit, still lingering, still trying to communicate, still trying to go home? And crucially, what hidden clue lay within that seemingly mundane instruction about a pawn shop near the market? The cryptic message reignited the cold case, posing the central, driving question. Could this spectral directive finally lead to the truth about what happened to Alex and where his remains might be found? Despite the fear and the years that had passed, Mark felt he couldn't ignore Alex's final, specific plea, especially coming right before his ordination. He immediately told his mother what he had seen and heard. His mother, understanding the weight of the situation and the history, conveyed the message to Alex's mother. Alex appeared to Mark. He said to check the pawn shop near the market again. He insisted. She returned to the pawn shop near the market, the one she had likely visited numerous times before. This time, however, she pressed the staff, explaining the unusual circumstances, emphasizing the urgency. Maybe it was her persistence, or perhaps the staff were moved by her story, but they undertook a more thorough search of their records and stored items. And then, they found it. Tucked away, perhaps miscatalogued or overlooked in previous searches, was an item linked to Alex, a distinctive family ring, one Mark remembered Alex occasionally wearing, a gift from his father. The pawn records associated with the ring held the crucial next clue, the name and details of the person who had pawned it years ago. It wasn't anyone Alex knew, nor anyone connected to the gangs. The ring had been pawned by a local municipal sanitation worker. Alex's mother tracked down the worker. When questioned about the ring, the man recalled finding it. He explained that several years prior, while doing his rounds cleaning near the row of abandoned, unfinished seaside townhouses, the very same area Mark associated with Alex's gang and that ominous alley, he had found the ring lying on the ground near some overgrown bushes by one of the derelict buildings. Assuming it was simply lost property, and needing the money, he had pawned it without thinking much more of it. He had no idea it was connected to a missing person. Suddenly, the pieces started clicking into place. The ring, found near the abandoned townhouses, strongly suggested Alex had met his end somewhere in that vicinity. Armed with this tangible link and location, Alex's mother sought spiritual counsel from a respected monk at a local temple. Laying out the story, the disappearance, Mark's spectral messages, the pawned ring found near the abandoned houses, she pleaded for guidance. The monk listened intently, then entered a state of meditation or divination. After some time, he opened his eyes and delivered the heartbreaking confirmation they had long feared, yet needed to hear. "Your son is no longer in this world," the monk stated gravely. "He has passed on." But he didn't stop there. He confirmed that Alex's spirit lingered because his body hadn't been found. He then pointed towards the specific area near the abandoned townhouses, confirming the location indicated by the ring's discovery. He might have even given more precise directions based on his spiritual insight, perhaps indicating a specific townhouse or a particular patch of overgrown ground. Guided by the monk's directions and the sanitation worker's testimony, Alex's family, likely accompanied by Mark and perhaps even notifying the authorities or gathering local volunteers, went to the desolate spot near the abandoned seaside development. With heavy hearts and shovels in hand, they began to dig in the area the monk had indicated. It wasn't long before their shovels struck something solid. Clearing away the earth revealed the undeniable, grim truth: skeletal remains buried in a shallow, unmarked grave. Amongst the bones, they might have found tattered remnants of clothing or other small personal effects that further confirmed the identity. After years of agonizing uncertainty, Alex had been found. The discovery of the body finally brought the full story to light, either through subsequent police investigation or confessions obtained once the truth started unraveling. Alex hadn't just run away or died accidentally. He had been murdered. The perpetrator, Mark learned, was one of the very friends from his gang, possibly the badly injured one Mark had seen leaning on Alex that night in the alley. It turned out this friend had perhaps been a rival who feigned friendship before ultimately killing Alex in a dispute or act of betrayal near those abandoned houses, burying his body hastily afterwards. Alex's desperate, spectral plea, "Take me home," was finally answered. His remains were recovered, allowing his grieving family to give him a proper funeral and finally lay him to rest. While the truth was tragic, the discovery brought a painful closure, ending the years of torturous uncertainty. For Mark, the resolution confirmed the reality of his terrifying experiences. He understood that the apparitions weren't just figments of his imagination or meaningless hauntings. They were the desperate attempts of a lost soul trying to guide someone, anyone, to his final resting place so he could finally be at peace and truly go home. Did this story give you goosebumps? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more scary stories like this one, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel.